Live. We're scheduled to be live. I'm sorry, anybody who was on Facebook that thought we were coming on at 10:15 a.m. That was my fault. It's actually 9 a.m. and we are alive. The coffee is pouring. Come on in, everybody. We see you out there in the hall. Have a seat. There's plenty of room here in front. Please don't push or shove your neighbor. And respect social distancing at all times.
Wear your damn mask.
You don't have to wear a mask. It's okay. Welcome, everybody. It's the Breakfast Buzz. It's Thursday morning. I'm here. Rob is here. We have a whole ton of great international guests this morning to introduce you to from all over the place. It's going to be a lot of fun. Come on in. Come on in. Have a seat. We see if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. If you're not subscribed to the Indie Volt YouTube channel yet, welcome everybody in Indie Volt Radio. In case you're listening, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We appreciate you all, wherever you are. And we love it that you're all over the place. So come on in. We're going to run the opening. And then we will get down to business. This is the Breakfast Buzz for Thursday, 9/17/2020. Good morning. Wasn't it? Wait a minute, that wasn't it. Let me see here. Oh, that's not the opening. There it is. What's new in indie comics? We need to also remind you that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Indie Volt Media, LLC, and do not reflect the official policy or position of any guest or sponsors. Viewer discretion is advised. You are going to hear a wide variety of opinions today. So we are rated TV MADLSV, where the V stands for variety. Somebody's opening something.
I'm eating. I'll mute. I'll be right there. I swear, it's just a power bar.
That's all right. That's all part of the transparency. Here we are. There we are. Hello. Good morning, everybody. We have a ton of great guests today. Some you know, some we don't know, some we'll get to know, or all we'll get to know. And welcome everybody. Meredith Logren is already up this morning. Hello, Meredith. You have a link anytime you want to come in. Comic Book Black Belt. Hello. Good morning. Meredith says, nice intro. Yes. And thanks so much for providing that for us, Meredith. I love that. Those cupcakes, the cock crowing, and then the explosion, just to get everybody up and around. Get that adrenaline running. All right. Let's see who we can bring in. Today on our program, we have Mr. Russ Leach from Comic Book Black Belt. Well, you just popped in the chat there for a second. So,
yeah. Good morning there. Good afternoon here.
Good morning. Good morning. Daphne Lage is here, all the way from New York. Mr. Fish Lee, how are you?
Doing good.
Good. And Mr. Kovacs.
Hey,
how are you?
Good morning to you guys. It's 3 p.m. here.
Awesome. Where is it where you are, Russ?
Yeah, just gone 2.
So he's an hour ahead.
Talk about overachievers, Randy. They're already ahead of us.
Yeah, they're way ahead of us.
I've switched from coffee to tea.
There you go. Well, hey, everybody. I'm Randy Zimmerman. I am an alternative and independent comic producer, publisher, creator, everything. Done just about everything in this business for many years. I am an award-winning commercial and graphic artist whose specialty right now is sequential art for advertising and education, and I am part of the Indie Volt podcast. I also have a Zim Geek channel here on YouTube. If ever you want to check it out and learn how to cartoon using squiggly lines and circles. So, and welcome aboard, everybody. And my co-host today is Mr. Rob Anderson. Rob, introduce yourself.
I create comics about farting elephants that teach morals. I create comics about fetish monsters and more. And I'm a proud advocate for comics. And all around a very cuddly person. Like, that's what people call me. They say I'm the most cuddly person they've ever met. How can I deny it? It's just true.
Okay.
And he's not buying any of it. Really. He's like, I don't buy that.
I was always told I was cuddly. Anyway. Russ, introduce yourself to our radio and listening audience.
Hi, yeah, my name's Russ Leach. I've got a channel called Comic Book Black Belt. I've been drawing comics in one form or another for the last 25, 30 years, but in anger in the last 10. And you can find me in and around the internet.
We'll have to talk later how you can hold on to that anger for an entire decade.
Yeah.
Spite's a good motivator.
There we go. That too. That
It's
too.
the Hulk method.
There
What's
you
my
go.
secret cap? I'm always angry.
Daphne, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Daphne Lage, and I'm a cartoonist, illustrator, and comic book artist hailing out of New York. And as you will know throughout the show, I am in competition with some parakeets and a parrot, and I'll try to keep their noise down as best as I can. I am the artist of the funny animal fantasy comic Tall Tales. The series spans more than 20 issues, and you can check out my work at talltalesonline.com. That's TAILS, and my YouTube channel at Daphne Lage Art.
That's Lage, Lage.
Lage. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, sometimes her bird does go off like a smoke detector. So
yeah,
in case you're listening and you have one and you hear a smoke detector, it's probably not yours, at least for the next couple of hours.
Yes, exactly.
So,
but if you smell smoke, run.
Yeah,
smell
exactly.
smoke.
Yes,
it might not be the bird after all. Yeah. Should we call you Mr. Fish, Mr. Lee, Mr. what?
Everybody calls me Mr. Fish.
Mr. Fish it is. Introduce yourself, Mr. Fish.
I'm Mr. Fish from Conway, Arkansas. I self-published my own comic, T-Man and Hyperstrike, a couple of years ago about a superhero team where he has Tourette syndrome like me and she has ADHD. And since then, I have been so busy illustrating everybody else's comics that I haven't been able to work on my own next issues. But that's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
I personally think I'm a very funny, cuddly guy, but everybody thinks I'm scary for some reason, and I don't know why. I guess it's because I'm like 6.5 feet tall, but I tend to scare everybody, and I'm like the funniest guy. But you know, it is what it is.
Scary. Fish, you're a great guy.
I think so. I'm a big fan. I mean, I might be biased, but I'm a big fan.
If anyone tells you that you're not nice, you tell me who they are, and I'll find them.
My fiance's like upstairs neighbor at her apartment was like convinced that I hated him. And I'm like, I always smile at you, dude. But I mean, but I am a giant, and with the sunglasses and the beard, I guess I just come off as intimidating. I don't know. But
the bike you ride outside too. The tattoos on your neck.
Next time.
But it's important how you smile at them. I mean, is it like a crazy smile or a regular smile?
Exactly.
But then I also I don't realize until I'm walking through Walmart and I make eye contact with somebody and I smile at them, I see what a big change it is in my face. Like I feel it. And I'm like, I must look like a real jackass all the time. But I don't think about it. But you know.
Well, they look at you and they go, there's a tall, angry man. Oh.
I guess so. But, I'm just a big, cuddly teddy bear. But, it is what it is.
I hear you. Mr. Kovacs, introduce yourself.
So, hey, everyone. I'm Milan Kovacs from Hungary. And we had this fairly successful Kickstarter recently in July. Called All Star, which can be found at allstarcomic.com. We now have a web shop up there, and we're accepting pre-orders for early October release. And that's me. I'm the writer and the project manager of the Kickstarter as well.
Cool, great. All right, there's the bird. Yep.
Yeah.
I know that bird's going to make me tick through the whole thing, but that's fine.
Oh, I'll try to keep it. honestly, if it's too much, if it really is too distracting for you, I'll drop out. You know, I don't
Not
want to.
really.
Right.
It feels like I'm in some tropic place. So
There you go.
I'm gonna tick either way, so it doesn't really matter.
Oh, okay. All right.
Glenn Ford says Daphne with the evil birds. They're not evil. They're
And
not
Daph,
evil.
you can always just mute between talking. So I mean,
Yeah, I'll try to mute it as
You
much
don't
as I
have
can.
you can.
Uh-huh.
Every so often we want to be reminded that the world still has birds.
There we go.
Birds are our friend.
Yeah. Glenn says, hello, everyone. Hello, Glenn. Marvi, ooh, so many people. How are you today? Have lots of fun. Remember, comics is a wonderful drug.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Absolutely right. We always say that Keanu said it best.
Comics are awesome.
Comics are awesome. Welcome aboard, Marv. Marv is in Portugal, and does some very incredible work called the Sin Killer. Sin Killer. I have a real bad time with names, so sorry. I have to apologize up front.
I'm the same. Memory's shot.
Marv also says, hey, Meredith.
Bon dia.
Thank you, Daphne. Joe McPhee says, good morning, all. Good morning, Joe. Thanks again for joining us. Absolutely. So let's start talking about projects. We've all got stuff to show off. So Russ, why don't you tell us about Only Death Can Save Us? See, I remembered that name.
Yeah. Yeah, Only Death Can Save Us. It's a dark title, but it's an all ages action comic. It's sci-fi fantasy. It's heavily influenced by the Bronze Age, a little bit of the bombastic energy of the 90s. And it's currently in its campaign. It's just on halfway through the first month, and I'm up to 45%. So I'm getting some good responses. And hopefully I'll be able to fund. It will be going to print in November, so should be hitting everybody's mats in January.
Cool. Rob, did you pull that up?
Already on it.
All right.
2 seconds, be there.
Give us just a second.
There we go.
Oh, website.
That's the website.
That's the website.
That's my website, russleach.com
Nice.
or comicbookblackbelt.com, either way. So you can find out about other projects that I've been on there and how to get me on the YouTubes and Twitter and places like that.
And here is Only Death Can Save Us. Badass art.
Name.
Check this out. And you actually have different videos within here as well that people can watch.
That's right. Yeah, it's from my channel. There's a playlist. There's a playlist on the channel where you can basically follow the production of the book. Right from the inception, how I come up with the idea, the writing of it, thumbnails, that kind of thing. And then as I go through and ink it through, at the moment, I'm sort of 2/3 of the way through inking the book, waiting for the campaign to finish. While I'm doing that, I'm also popping up screen captures of panels while I ink them as well. So you can see how the book is coming along.
And if you go over to his page, you'll see just how professional that artwork looks. Nice and crisp. It's a beautiful idea. It looks like a lot of fun. That's
the core of it, really. Is I wanted it to be fun. All ages books when I was a kid were truly all ages. You know, anyone could read them, but they never spoke down to the reader. Mm-hmm. And they always engaged and had lots of different core concepts and ideas, even politics and stuff, you know, but it did it in a way that it wasn't heavy-handed, and it made it a fun journey. And that's what I'm trying to produce now. I have an arc of 4 books for the first set of books. So it's episodic in its content, which means you can pick each book up and have fun with it. But if you want to get involved in the story, it's all there to connect.
Oh, that's great.
And now, one of the things I love about this is it's a definite throwback to the 90s. I remember the first time Russ and me were talking, I looked at this and fell in love with it. I'm like, oh my God, this reminds me of my childhood. I could actually smell the newsprint.
I would have loved to have had it printed on newsprint. But,
well, you still can. I mean, here in America, if you team up with someone over in America, we have some actual places now that are doing newsprint printing back.
Yeah, I mean, Alterna are doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't working out for me because I'm doing it in an 80-page graphic novel. I couldn't make it work. But what I have been able to do is I've been able to source the paper stock that it's going on, and it will be dull, so it won't be shining in your face. It won't be too thick, so it will give that sort of impression. So it won't overdo the colors.
Mm-hmm. We're currently looking at a video on your campaign, watching you draw.
That's right. Yeah, this is just the turnaround for the main character, Death, or D as he's called. And it's a screen cap of me doing that. Sure. There's a screen cap of me coloring it up as well and doing some stuff to it. So you can watch all kinds of videos there. I've got other breakdown videos of Marvel and Doctor Who stuff. I've got a whole set of breakdowns of every issue of the Ben 10 series that I did, so that you can see how my color work progressed from one issue to the final one, because when I first took on Ben 10, I hadn't really done any professional coloring.
So you've been in the business for about 10 years?
Yeah, I kicked off in 95 or 96, where I submitted work to Marvel, and the new talent manager there at the time, I think his name was Louis Lewandowski. He said, yeah, your work's great. I'm going to start, putting it out to the editors and what have you. And nothing really happened. Back then, we didn't have email. We had snail mail, as you all know. And it just didn't work out for me. So I went away, had a career, production, art direction, coding, all kinds of stuff, paying a mortgage. And I came back to it in 2010 and decided I was going to give it another go, naively thinking that it wouldn't be too difficult after having a career in all kinds of other bizarre things. I thought, no, I could do this. No, it's an absolute nightmare. But it's something you love. You just can't get it out of your system.
There you go.
It's a drug, but it's part of you. I had to tell stories. Fortunately, I've been able to pick up storyboarding work and commercial illustration. And this year, but basically with work slowing down because of the beer virus, it gave me the opportunity to focus on my own book. So I went for it.
Cool.
And they do say that comics is actually not something you ever quit. You just relapse every so often back.
Yeah.
Oh, it gets in the blood. It gets in the blood and doesn't go away. Once you decide you're going to do it, you're going to find a way to do it eventually.
Eventually, yeah. I always wanted to be in the bullpen, with Marvel bullpen when I was a kid. Sure. And Stanley always, and the editorial always made you feel like a family when you were reading. You always felt sort of on the periphery of it. You were almost there. Of course, I found out later on that wasn't a real thing. But all I ever wanted to do was just draw pages. I wasn't interested in writing my own books. I just want to sit down and draw pages. But after a proper career, I realized. Oh
no! Let's not say you went out and got a real job. That's not the way to approach this.
You got to stop the paid bills. That's what.
There you go. Yeah.
I soon realized after the experiences I'd had in my previous life that it's just not a viable prospect to think you can just pick up paid work via pages. You had to do something else. It was about relationships with editors and people you knew, and the whole industry was not the same as pitching for work in the way that I did with retail design and programming for leisure industry. So I realized soon on, even though I was getting work, but after 2015 I picked up the Doctor Who work. I realized that, once a production or once a magazine stops, once a publication stops, you're at the behest of whatever editor decides they like you or don't like you. And, you could just be sitting on the shelf waiting forever. So I thought, no, I got to do it myself. So I started writing. I wrote a couple of scripts and finalized one into a graphic novel script. Felt that it wasn't quite right and took some of the ideas from that and then wrote this script about 18 months, 2 years ago.
Okay.
Now, did I hear you right recently saying that you actually made living changes, like where you live, to better accommodate doing this kind of work?
Yeah, my business. I had a business in programming, so I did UI design, and I was a director of a company where we programmed for the leisure industry and built systems, and that came to a natural end in 2008. I did some online projects with some other people for a couple of years, but this was always something I wanted to get back into. So, come 2010, I decided I was going to give it a shot. And 2012 rolled around, and I realized that if I really wanted to give this a proper go, I had to invest in myself. I had to invest time and also the ability to take risks financially.
Mm-hmm.
And so my wife said, well, we should sell up. So the two of us sold up the house that we had and bought a house half the size, and basically cleared the mortgage so that I could take opportunities on much, much smaller paying work, so that I could build my way up through the ranks, as it were.
Sure.
That's smart.
That's a fantastic idea. And it shows the passion you have for this medium. And a lot of people don't make those risks. And I applaud you, because it's when I always read, it's when you take the risk, it's when you keep going, even when it looks like it won't work, that success is found. I keep looking, I'm hoping, taking these risks, but I love what you're doing. It's needed right now. We need these books back in play. So thank you for bringing that energy back to comics.
No, I mean, it gives as well. It's not just something that takes from you. It does give. Getting people coming up to you. Something I found when I was drawing Doctor Who is I was instantly accepted into the Doctor Who family. So I'd have people come up and ask for autographed posters and things like that, and be super kind and nice to me, and then related to that, I'd have people asking me for commissions, but just people being interested in your work. And then the idea that maybe also seeing kids reading the books as well was very that changed my view on comics. I didn't realize the way that I was consuming comics, the way that I was thinking about comics, and didn't realize just how much all ages meant to me. But once I started getting involved in the Doctor Who stuff, I realized what I wanted to do, and that is I wanted to tell stories to as broader audience as possible. And also, if you get that opportunity to hear someone say to you that story or that drawing or that piece of art, whatever it is, made a difference to me, it inspired me to do something, inspired me to write my own, I learned something from it. Or even just that it gave me a really good time, I enjoyed the story, it's incredible that buzz you get from it, but also you feel like you've done your job. If you inspire someone to do something with your work, you've done your job. Making a living out of it is a completely different subject.
Oh yeah.
But fortunately, I had the storyboarding work, and I have been involved in some comic book work for commercial purposes rather than for comic book publishing, and that kept me freelancing while I was trying to do this. When you
were doing the commercial comic book work, were you getting paid closer to your storyboard prices, or were you getting comic book rates?
I got the rates that I set. So commercially, you would get an illustrator's rate. So they would pay you for your time because you had a skill they required. But comic book rates, it's almost like, oh, you love it, you must want to do it for free. Well, no, that's not the core. Yes, I get a lot out of it, but I still need to eat. I knew this was going to happen. I at least wasn't so naive that I didn't realize that was going to be the case, which
Yeah.
is why I put the financial solution in place. But yeah, it's tough out there. I feel sorry for the younger generation who want to do it, because it's a nightmare. You want to try paying a mortgage or, you know, paying rent or whatever while you're being a comic book artist. It's nigh on impossible.
Well, that's why a lot of these comic artists, especially in the gold and silver age days, were workhorses. I mean, they were able to sit down and kick out pages because they had to. That's how you fed your family. But
there was also this element of being a draftsman back then.
Yeah,
it was a respectable job, you know. Even though it was sort of out on the edges, it was like people were these artists like Buscema and Stalin and Steranko or Ditko, whatever, Kirby, they were just fantastic draftsmen, utmost professionalism, and they got work done. They rolled their sleeves up and they got the job done.
Yeah.
And I think some of that is missing. I think some of that's down to just the way entertainment is consumed, the whole X Factor generation, and the way that some creators are kind of held in celebrity status. It doesn't help the industry, I don't think, to be putting people up on a pedestal. It's not helpful.
And I want to give a real bit of credit here to Russ. Humble. He is humble as hell, and that's going to help him in his career. The younger creators coming into the market right now, they expect too much. You have to earn. The one thing,
not everybody, but some of them do.
There's a big group moving in. Not all. There are some people out there getting the education, taking their time, trying to figure it out. We love those. We're talking about the loud group, the group that always happens to be louder, not always the biggest, but the loudest group. Is like, well, I make comics. Where's my contract? Where's my Netflix contract? No. As Randy would say, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works.
Nope.
No.
Yeah, that's the thing. They're looking at comics as a stepping stone, not as something that you have a passion for. They might as well just be working at any other company, just trying to get.
The problem you've got is you've got very large companies now in control of comic book publishing, and comic book publishing doesn't make enough money for the large corporates to be truly passionate about it. So you've got passionate creatives and individuals who are in mainstream, but the guys at the top aren't. So, and that is reflected in the kind of comics that you get. Like they're more interested in a film or a lunchbox or whatever it might be, which you can understand because it is a business. We all want to get paid for what we do. Part of me wanting to be in the bullpen as a kid was I would be that good enough as a draftsman to be paid to do this for a living. That's part of the magic. That is part of the magic. But at the same time, there's too many people in comics who are here just passing through and are not making comics for the sake of the medium, for the sake of making comics.
Right.
It's not everyone. It's just a lot. It's just there's too many.
Yeah. Well, especially in the corporate cog system that they have, you see it as an opportunity to start at the bottom and step your way up, when really it's a medium of entertainment that folks need to realize that and have the drive for. Here in the States, the corporate has always been in charge pretty much since comics started, and that's what's really exciting about having the crowdfund campaigns open and having the alternative market blow up the way that it is that now you get a lot more personal vision. You have a lot more, actually a lot more of the profits going directly to the creative group who are putting the product together. And it really is opening up wide open the market to a lot of different viewpoints and a lot of different material.
It's the Wild West again. It's
is.
Like the Indiegogo and not so much Kickstarter, but crowdfunding in general has created an environment almost like a new printing press.
Yeah,
it's democratized comic book publishing to everybody, and there's a lot going on. It's very difficult to get your hand out of the sea of creativity to stand out, but the market will decide that. And I think on your point of corporatization, yes, the corporates were always in charge. The difference was there was so much more money in comics back in the day that it was focused on comics. Whereas now there's not a lot of money in corporate comics.
Well, also those companies were a lot smaller. They weren't taken over by bigger fish that were taken over by bigger fish. Like
much bigger fish. Yeah.
DC started out as DC before it was taken over by Warner's, before it was taken over by Turner, before it was taken over by AT&T. And Marvel's the same way.
Yeah.
Plus here in the States, since the 50s, we've always had comics have always had a stigma of being kiddie literature and always looked down upon. It's pretty much since its inception has always been looked at as a lower class, bottom rung art, where over anywhere else but in the United States, comic artists are looked at as comic artists. They're appreciated more.
It's the same in the UK.
It's just such a higher standard.
Yeah, I think it's the same in the UK. Not quite the same, but very similar. But like Europe is more like Japan.
Yeah,
like you got Belgium, I think Italy, France, Spain. Certainly Belgium and France. Like, you know, you can make yourself a proper career as a comic book artist over there.
Right.
Now, Fish was trying to say something. What were you trying to say?
Oh man, there's so many things I've wanted to say without it.
Well, don't be afraid to speak up.
Jump in,
This
guys.
is a conversation. Yeah.
I mean, I love the fact that, you know, the Kickstarters and all that stuff have made it easier for everybody to get out there and get their stories out. But at the same time, there is a sea of junk out there now that you've got to try and rise above. And there's so many people that are like, oh, this is my version of the Justice League doing my version of a Justice, League Unlimited story, except the bad guy wins or whatever. And it's like there's no real original ideas to it. And like y'all were saying, so many people are more concerned about getting to the animation deal and the movie and selling toys. And, oh, if you'll just do my comic book for free, I'll cut you in on the movie deal and we'll be billionaires down the road. Yeah. But I'm like, your idea is just a ripoff. Like you're not caring about telling a real story, and you haven't crafted this story in this world that's going to make it interesting and pull people in and make us care about it. And you're skipping over all the important stuff to try and, make a buck. And comics, especially indie comics, isn't really the way to make a quick buck.
No.
Yeah, we all.
I'm sorry.
We all know, and we use it as a quote anymore from Jack Kirby. Kid, comics will break your heart.
Will break your heart. Yeah.
Yep.
Also another thing about crowdfunding, it's like I'm not sure how much crowdfunding is also removing artists from the corporate pool, because like years ago when like doing pinups and prints at shows was like the thing. I was hearing stories about, there was one editor in particular, I don't remember who it was, but I kind of remember him being from Top Cow, and he was complaining how a lot of artists that he wanted to hire were making so much money at conventions from selling, pinups that and fan art and whatnot and commissions, that he couldn't hire them because it's like they made more money there than if they ever worked on a comic. And and of course he said it in an attitude, well, you can't quit, I fired you type of thing. And I'm kind of wondering if Kickstarter and and Indiegogo has done the same thing, which I'm pretty sure it has, which would explain the questionable quality of people corporates are getting nowadays, because everyone else is being able to afford to do their own thing, as opposed to struggling at working in a corporate structure that wants to pay them as little as possible because they're concerned about making all the money on the movies.
Yeah.
We've had 20, 30 years of a very suppressive corporate structure.
Yeah.
Especially again here in the States, where those pay limit, that pay grade is always kept low on purpose.
Yeah.
And they would much rather find somebody who's not quite as talented, who doesn't quite have that background, so that they can pay them less in order to get their widget out. The only problem is, we were talking earlier, a lot of these older guys, the ones with the bigger reputations, are pure workhorses that they could always depend on, that were always there, that would always hit a deadline. So. And now we're pulling up T-Man and Hyperstrike with Mr. Fish.
Yeah, that's my baby right there.
Give us that elevator pitch.
T-Man and Hyperstrike is a book about a superhero team with Tourette syndrome and ADHD, just like I have. So I know the world really well. T-Man is tapped into the cosmic T-force, which is the energy that makes all of us with Tourette syndrome so creative and imaginative, and makes us great musicians and great athletes, and makes our brains work faster and makes us just awesome people. And the tics is our body's way of burning off all the extra awesomeness inside. And so T-Man can tap into everybody in the world with Tourette syndrome and has all of their combined strength, all of their combined speed, all of their combined intelligence and creativity, and uses that to, save the day and fight monsters and whatnot. Hyperstrike is his partner, not his sidekick or his girlfriend. It's his equal partner, and she has ADHD, and she has focused all of her abundant energy into studying martial arts and becoming an engineer, and built herself a suit to focus off all of her extra energy and use it to power her suit and do all kinds of cool stuff. And I wrote this story specifically because in the Tourette's community, I've met so many people, like grown adults. Like I spent my 30s stuck in a wheelchair because I was constantly thrashing and ticking. Like I couldn't feed myself. I couldn't walk, talk, or see most of the time. It was tough. But in my outreach and stuff in the community, I would meet people that, were on disability. They were living in the projects. They can't have a job. They can't get married. They can never do anything because they blink a lot. And it would break my heart, but somebody got it in their head that they were broken when they were a kid, and they're broken. So there's no point in trying. And, I know people that won't go grocery shopping because they're afraid somebody's going to pick on them like they did in middle school, or, can't hold a job because they sniff a lot. And I'm like, or like one lady I was talking to, she hadn't worked in like 20 years because she swears every once in a while, which is actually a pretty small part of Tourette syndrome. But, she swears every once in a while. She can't have a job. I've worked in places where people are cussing a blue streak all day long in the shop. Nobody gives a flip. And I'm like, there's no reason that you have to give up. I mean, I'm thrashing around in my wheelchair and yipping and yelping, and I'm still zipping along Walmart and just waving at everybody that stares and having a big old time. So I decided after meeting all these adults, I was like, the only real hope is to try and get to the kids before the world beats them down and tell them how awesome they are, and focus on all the things that make you awesome and wonderful. And yeah, maybe I tick, maybe I might yell out, hot potato in the middle of the store or something, and everybody stares at me. But that's just one more thing that makes me awesome. And so the whole book is focused on, getting kids encouraged about how cool they are. It is not a book to explain what Tourette syndrome is to newly diagnosed kids. It's not a book to explain Tourette syndrome to kids that don't have it. There's lots of those things out there. But it's fun for everybody. I made sure that it was a good story and it was interesting. And the real heart of the story, like I rewrote this book like 4 times before I got the story just right. And actually, T-Man and Hyperstrike are more side characters in this book, as it focuses on this little girl, Mia, as she goes through her life. And the evil scientist has figured out he can't beat T-Man because he's too powerful. He's got all this unlimited T energy that he just can't stop. So he decides to siphon off this little girl with Tourette's to power his monsters. And at first, her tics are gone, and, she's not yipping and yelping in school, and it seems great. But she also isn't the smartest kid in math class, and she's not the most creative kid in the art class. And her friends are concerned because she's not acting normal anymore. And then all this energy is way too much, and the monsters get too big and powerful, and she has to take her power back and becomes her own superhero. It's just, it gives me goosebumps. I can't stand it. And, and I just purely made it to be as encouraging as it could possibly be, and put it out there, and it sold really well. I mean, admittedly, it's kind of like shooting fish in a barrel. It's a niche market and doesn't have a lot of stuff for it. So, parents snagged it up like crazy. And I had some people back my Kickstarter for like $250 for no reward just because they wanted to help out. And that was really awesome. But the letters that I started getting and the videos that I started getting from kids around the world just, broke my heart. Like getting videos of little girls jumping up and down on the couch because they saw one of their ticks in the book that T-Man had, or they didn't realize that their picture was going to be in the book. Because I had a spot in there where he's talking about how awesome we all are and all the different bonuses and abilities that we have. And so I've got like a page in there where it's got pictures of a lot of the Kickstarter backers and their kids and stuff in the book. And every time T-Man uses his powers, then he, you see in the background where he's like pulling powers and stuff from people. And a lot of these are real people and, athletes and kids and writers and authors and stuff that I know with Tourette's that I put in the background. And it was so cool. And we were driving down the road and I was reading this letter and I just bust out into tears, and my ex-wife freaks out. She thinks somebody died and she's like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Is this kid from England? And he said he wants to book me to." And I'm just bawling. But to see how much it's inspired these kids and how much they feel actually a part of it, because I put like real people's ticks in there. One of his, some of his abilities are more funny. Like he can have this sonic vocal tick that's 1,000 different people's vocal ticks at once and, can break down walls. And so, I just put all kinds of different people's vocal ticks in there and stuff. And when these kids see something that matches up with theirs, it was so cool. Yeah, that picture right there is where I gave people
Google.
an opportunity to write stuff in. And then in the finished book, there's all these different vocal ticks and stuff that people had. And it's really cool. And like I said, I've got stories for many more issues to go after that. But once that book got out there, I started having a lot of other people hit me up for illustrating their books. And because I live in Arkansas and the, cost of living is a lot cheaper down here, my prices are low and I'm a workhorse and knock out, at least a page a day, finished print ready work. And so it's been really hard since then to say, no, I'm going to turn down your paying work today to work for free for myself for the hope of getting paid next month when I publish it. I'm taking your job all day long. So for like 2 years, I've been doing other people's books, and it's been really awesome. But I've got to start honing out some time to get the next issue done, because the next issue is going to be really cool, and I'm excited about it.
Now, and I love the fact
go ahead.
Turned ADHD into a superpower, because as a kid who experienced ADHD, who had dyslexia, was told he was retarded, he's absolutely right. At this point, as an adult, as a 42-year-old adult, I still feel like an idiot half the time. I have trouble sometimes saying names and words, and you've heard it on the program if you watch it. And I'm trying. I can hear myself in my own mind saying the word, but I can't get it to fly out of my mouth. So it's very frustrating, and I applaud you for trying to start with children to make sure children don't feel bullied, because we don't talk about that enough.
Once you've
we
got
don't talk about
40 years of programming in your head, it's hard to get past. But if you can get in there early enough and tell them that they're awesome and focus on the things that make you awesome. If I was only focused on the fact that I can't spell, I would miss out on all kinds of things. I'm an awesome storyteller. I'm an awesome artist. I'm an awesome drummer. I'm a great friend. I'm a great advocate for people with Tourette syndrome. I'm kind. I'm generous. I got a lot of things going for me. If I just focused on the fact that I mess up names and phone numbers and, things like that, I would be really disappointed in myself. But
yeah, I was a kid just like you, who, if they didn't think I was retarded, mind you, that's their word, not mine. I understand that's not an acceptable word now. It was the word thrown at me. They called me a retard, tried to kick me out of a school for gifted kids, forced me to take an IQ test. I'd been told I was stupid my entire life. That IQ test saved my life, and so did comics, because at that point I'd fallen in love with comics, and they were showing me a different world. If I didn't have that moment where they made me take an IQ test and turned around and went, oops, you're a genius. You really screwed up. You have an IQ that's the highest in the building. Sorry, we really screwed up. And that made me understand that I wasn't what they were portraying me. How many kids are falling through the cracks where the parents didn't push back and say, no, my son's not stupid. No, he's not a retard. You're missing something. There's something wrong. My father fought the school because they just wanted to do it, because schools are like that. They just do whatever they want in America. My dad refused to accept it. How many parents had just been forced into accepting something about their kids?
The school system's handling so many kids so fast, they literally end up pigeonholing. So, and that's one of the things to the detriment of the system.
I try and get through to parents too, especially like I meet a lot of like new parents of newly diagnosed kids, and their first thought is, oh my goodness, my kid has this, neurological disorder that's incurable and he's going to have it forever. And, what's his life going to be like? Is everything over? And I'm like, no. Their life is going to be awesome, and they're going to be really cool, and they're going to be smart, and they're going to be creative. And this is going to make them strong and generous and merciful. And, yeah, there are going to be hard times, but like their attitude and how the parent reacts to it makes a huge difference too. If they go to bat for you and they're like, my kid is awesome, and you're not going to discount my kid because he's a little bit different, then that's going to work out really well. If every time they look at their kid ticking, they're like, oh, bless their heart, his poor life's just been ruined by these ticks, and then they try and medicate and diet and supplement and essential oil all the ticks away, which is never going to happen, then the kid ends up thinking there's something wrong with them forever and that they can't accomplish things. And I'm like, dude, you can do anything. Like I was literally stuck in my wheelchair. I could only work one thumb enough to be able to text on my phone, to be able to like reach out to people across Facebook. I couldn't speak. I couldn't feed myself. I couldn't take a bath by myself at the time. And I was talking to this kid that was 19, and he was in government housing. He was on disability. His whole life's over. He can't hold a job. He can't do anything. He'll never have a wife and kids because he blinks a lot and because he swears like twice a month. And I was like, dude, you can freaking drive. I can't even get in the car by myself, much less drive. I've got one eye open every once in a while, enough to check when I'm scrolling out on my phone with my one thumb that works. I was like, dude, man, you are blessed, man. Get out there and kill it. There's so much you could be doing right now. And, I'm an encourager at heart, so I can't help but, get excited and want to push people to do better and do everything they can. Sometimes we got to do stuff differently. Like I cannot hold down a regular full-time job. Like I can't stand that long. I have trouble talking on the phone when I'm whacking myself in the head. There's lots of things that I would like to be able to go out and do. I'd like to be able to go to the office every day and talk with people over, the water cooler about what we watched on Netflix. But I've had to make some adjustments. But the adjustments I make, I get to work from my recliner, which is nice and comfortable, which causes me less pain. I got a computer system to draw on, which helps fix a little bit of the shakiness in my hand. I can adjust the stability and fix some of my shaky lines. Now that I work digitally, I can do so much more of my drawing straight in ink on the computer, because if I mess something up, I can erase it or I can tweak it or move it. And I've made adjustments, but now I'm working for myself full time drawing indie comics, which is flipping awesome. And, it's awesome. You can do it. You just got to figure out a way to make it work in your advantage.
That's some really nice artwork as well, man.
Yeah,
it's really, really nice. It's got a Bronze Age vibe to it.
And do you have an active campaign running right now?
Well, not for my book. My book's for sale on my Facebook page, Tourette's Life. I've got a shop there, and I've got books and posters and T-shirts and all kinds of stuff people can buy there.
Rob,
I've got
you want to run a link
other
for that
projects I'm working on that are going to Kickstarter and stuff soon, but my stuff's there on my Facebook page.
Before we transition, I do want to just say this. And this is why Fish's book is so important. Sometimes adults need to understand things. As someone who suffers from dyslexia, I've had people tell me, oh, my mom had dyslexia, or I know someone who had dyslexia, and they got over it like it was the flu. Not understanding how many years that person more than likely took to learn methods around it. And not everyone's symptoms are the same. You know, and I don't think people understand that, because when we talk about these issues, even my son with autism, people like walk away like it's contagious. Oh, I don't want to really talk about this because I'm afraid I'll catch the autism. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works.
My son is Asperger's, and when people talk about autism, it's almost like it's a catch-all expression. Everybody is unique every single time. Everybody who has Asperger's or autism, every one of them is different. You can't just say this is the way it works.
And it's all the same for everybody. That's my thing now. I've learned over the years that when I meet new people, I don't tell them I have Tourette syndrome, because then they automatically shut down and say, oh, I know what that is. That's the lady that cusses on Deuce Bigelow. And they think they know, and they shut down, and they're not listening anymore. So instead, I tell them that, you know, I was born with a neurological condition, and it makes my brain function a little differently, and it makes things run really fast, but it also causes a lot of short circuits. And sometimes, you know, something that was going to be a thought accidentally shoots out your mouth, or sometimes it misfires and my eye twitches, or I make a face. I explain what the condition is, and then I tell them that it's a Tourette syndrome, and they're listening and learning, and then they find out the name, and they're like, oh, maybe this is more than I thought it was. And I found that to be really helpful. Yeah, there's my page and all the projects that I've been working on lately.
Fish Lee's page is on Facebook. It's under Tourette's Life.
Also, I just want to say that the book that you're working on, this is pretty symbolic of how independent comics truly is diverse, and has a diversity that you're never going to find in mainstream comics. No, this type of book could never exist in a corporate structure, where they want very specific people to work on very specific things. And if they decide that maybe they want to profit off of your whatever it is that's part of your identity, they pick the most superficial aspect of that is, and they make exactly. And for some reason, it's like way too many people are depending on companies like Marvel and DC to be the leader of diversity, when really it's here already. You just have to look. You have to dig a little harder in the independent section to find it, because the corporations are not going to do whatever identity you want represented. They're never going to do it justice, because they're never going to do it honestly. They're never going to do it with, with like that personal knowledge of that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. After I did my comic book, people got all excited about it, and they're like, "Oh, you need to do a superhero with autism and a superhero with cerebral palsy and it's like, I don't know those worlds as well as I know this. Like, I can be honest and genuine about Tourette syndrome and ADD because I lived that. And I did a cartoon for a long time. That's why my page is called Tourette's Life. I did a cartoon for a long time just about my life with Tourette's, and people would get mad and be like, well, that's not what Tourette's is. And I changed it to be me, and it's real stories of what I did. And it might not be what your Tourette's is like, and that's cool. You might not have been on crutches or been in a wheelchair, but I was, and this is what my life was like. And it's genuine and honest about that. And, I'm not going to step in and pretend like I know enough about cerebral palsy that I could do a superhero about that and give it the same kind of justice that I can do with this. And I couldn't stand up behind it and say, I believe in this and this is true, because I haven't lived it the same way. But also, like you were saying, with it being an indie comic, I sold like 300 copies the first year without even really trying to advertise it. For Marvel, that would be nothing. That's not enough to, bother running the presses. For me, that was good for a month's work. That was great for me. And that's nice.
Your work can also be found at MrFishComics.com.
Yep. Yeah, I don't update my web page as often as I should, but yeah, MrFishComics.com, and I'm on Twitter at Mr. Fish Lee and Instagram at Tourette's Life, and
Good.
I don't know how to work those other platforms as well as I do Facebook for some reason. I get lots of reactions on Facebook, but and that's where I've found most of this work is through friends and colleagues and stuff that I worked with. And man, I made one good friend in indie comics working on my first paying gig, inking this small indie comic. And the letterer, Eric N. Bennett, we became friends. He started hiring me for some mock covers. He started showing it to his friends. Every job I've done over the last 2 years is because of like somebody he knew that he connected me to and was showing my work off to. And like after my divorce, there was a period there between two books where I had like a couple of weeks with nothing to do. Man, Eric's out there for free on Facebook. He's like, hey, Fish has got openings. If you need a commission, you need to hit him up right now.
Yeah.
Like, those are some awesome people in indie comics right there that have flat out kept me employed, man. I love it. It's a wonderful community, and I can't say enough nice things about it.
I hear you. And it's an ever-growing community, too.
Yeah, it is.
Now we're going to move on to Mr. Kovacs. Sorry that you've had to wait so long.
No, it's okay. I actually didn't really want to speak until I'm in line. So I wanted to say that I'm pretty sure I met Russ Leach in person at one of the UK conventions in the last 10 years. I have no idea which time exactly, but I remember your name and I remember your face as well. So I'm pretty sure we met somewhere.
Hello. Hello again.
Hey, and to Mr. Fish, I'm really curious about your Kickstarter, and I just bookmarked it so I can take a look at it later. And also, I liked your Facebook page because I'm really interested in what you're doing, your own comics and your work for hire stuff as well. So just wanted to say this, sorry, before beginning promoting my own projects.
No problem. Thanks. And you're always welcome to chime in the conversation. Just feel free.
Yeah, sure. It's just you were just talking to, awesomely, so I didn't want to interrupt.
Sure.
Anyway, so my project is called All Star, and it's now a graphic novel with 52 pages, which was made by two really big stretch goals, made possible by two really big stretch goals. In the end, we got funded 200%, so it made sense to expand the comic with 12 extra pages. And we even got a kind of origin story artist in the comic as well, who is called Ernő. He's also from Hungary. By the way, we are all from Hungary. And All Star is about a kid called Jimmy, who is being bullied at school, and the teachers don't really like him. At least he thinks they don't like him. And he has this love interest and all the classical storylines as well. But the main thing is that he tries to cope with his problems and his frustrations by starting to draw his own comic, write and draw, more exactly.
Cool. And what is the site? What is the site name that we're looking at right now?
I'm sorry.
What is the site name that we're looking at right now?
Yes, this is allstarcomic.com. This was the link to the Kickstarter, but now we use it for the web shop for, you can pre-order the comic. And these were the pages we see now are the black and white versions we started the campaign with, because we wanted to raise money for the whole full color book, which is colored by Tommy Varga, who is for 4 years was the colorist of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Kevin Eastman, and he's also Hungarian, so it's a small world. And the artist is Steve Fabian, and both of these guys learned to draw comics at the Kubert School in the US, which is also an interesting thing. Mm-hmm. Anyway, it's not a traditional superhero book. It's more like something like a mashup with growing up and superheroes. This guy, who I already mentioned, Jimmy, he comes up with his own comic character called All Star, and it's the character is an analogy for himself, obviously, and all the villains in the book are teachers, others, classmates, and and people like that, because he incorporates all his real life into this fictional life he creates on the pages. And it's a fun fact that all the if you scroll just a little bit down, there's this panel on the right. Yeah, yes, that's on the top. Those panels were actually drawn by an actual kid. He's called Armin Kraus. He's also from Hungary. And these original pages he drew on paper were also part of our campaign at specific reward levels. You could own an original from a 14-year-old kid.
That's awesome.
Cool.
And this is something I really wanted to do because I love metaphysical comics. Like, I'm a big Grant Morrison fan. And it always interested me to do something like this, that when the kid is drawing in the comic, it has to be drawn by an actual kid, because to me, it doesn't make sense any other way. So we put some of these Easter eggs and everything in the book itself. And this is just a 12-page preview we are looking at. But now the book is fully done. I think we are only waiting for the origin story colors, which is done by Ernő, the backup story artist, and the comic is pre-orderable at allstarcomic.com, and we have like tons of variant covers and prints and other merchandising, like 3D printed Beast of Balaton. Beast of Balaton is a character from the story, the big monster at the beginning of the PDF. And there is a cute baby version of that character we 3D printed. And yeah, this is the Beast of Balaton. And Balaton, by the way, is Hungary's biggest lake. So we try to do everything from local inspirations, but in a way that it's still interesting for the international market. So it's a little bit like a tourist attraction for non-Hungarians, but in other ways, because we also sell the comic in Hungarian and in Hungary, we needed to put some of these Easter eggs in the comic as well, so people would be more interested in Hungary in buying a comic book, because honestly, Hungary is not known for a big comic book artists or writers either, sadly.
There's still plenty of time to get up there and become Hungarian comic superstars, though.
Oh yeah, that's the plan. Thank you for saying that, Andy. Yeah, that's the plan. Actually, we are trying to do a lot of other projects. I have like 6 projects in the works, all of them comic related, with different artists, all of them Hungarian. I try to only commission international artists for the variant covers, because it still gives them. I mean, they still get paid, and we can still use indie comic creators, which we really like to do, because otherwise we would die starving or something like that.
And for our radio audience, we are talking to Milan Kovacs. That's right? Is that close enough? Like that. From allstarcomic.com.
Yes.
Beautiful work. That's awesome.
This is a T-shirt design for Bobby. That's the baby version of the Beast of Balaton. It's like B.O.B. Bob, Beast of Balaton, and
Okay.
it's a Twin Peaks reference in a little bit as well. But this is the exact design we used for the 3D printed model as well. So it's I really love this little guy.
It's awesome.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Love the artwork as well. The black and white stuff. That's
Thank you.
gorgeous.
He's the origin story backup artist, so he's gonna be in the book as well.
Sweet.
Cool.
And is that a book that you'll be crowdfunding or just available on the All Star site?
It was actually funded in July.
Okay. Yeah.
It got to 200 persons, so we were pretty happy about it, and drinking champagne all night long when it ended. And
have you thought about going to in demand on Indiegogo? Because you could continue to get backers
actually,
from that.
an awesome idea, which I started looking into a week ago. So thank you for the suggestion, and I think that's a possibility, and it would maybe broaden the audience as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you,
Definitely
Rob.
keep you out there and keep you a little more accessible. So
Yeah,
and steer more people to your site as well. So
for sure. Yeah. Thank you.
well, thank you. Thanks a lot for coming on and showing your
Of
stuff.
course, anytime.
That's allstarcomic.com again. Mr. Kovacs and Bobby.
The new Baby Yoda of indie comics.
There we go.
Actually, somebody wrote that in Hungarian press, and I was like, "Oh, okay, that's."
Well, not for nothing. Bobby looks a lot cuter.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that.
All right, now we're gonna move on to what did you want me to show, Dad? I didn't know what you're doing this morning. And
Before we get on that, let's get on the chat just a little bit because everybody's been saying hello except Glenn. Glenn says hello and made a remark about Daphne's bird that we won't put out.
No bird hating on this show.
Horrible bird hating. But he did say just wanted to stop by and say hi. I'm going to bed, so have a good show. So he won't even hear us talking about his remarks until he wakes up. Kino Subway says, "Hail everyone! Hope you're all having a good morning." Hail Kino Subway, he's a regular listener. Oh, I like the way Only Death Can Save Us looks, and Russ is a cool dude.
Thank you. It's nice to see you, Kino.
I like getting to talk to him. As soon as I get my bank to let me back outside the U.S., I'm backing it.
That's bizarre. I've heard that on a few occasions that it's difficult to pay for international product. I don't quite understand, but
that seems odd since you're taking U.S. dollars, right? You've got it converted there.
Yeah, I mean, Indiegogo is international, so you'd think it would just be straightforward. Yeah.
And I back international campaigns, but I run through a credit union, so that might be different. Meredith says hello to Marv. Sarah is on board. Hello, Sarah. Hope you're doing well. Hi there. Selling a house for relativity is the biggest passion I've ever seen. Holy hell, that's massive passion.
There's a book called The War of Art. I think it's Stephen Pressfield. And in the book, he pretty much like outlines that it's like if you want to be in the creative field, you have to nearly sacrifice everything to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a kind of a little bit of a hardcore book.
Again, that falls back on the old cliche too, where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
You certainly need the support of family and friends.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You can't just casually jump feet first.
I'll say now it's not completely for the art. There is a standard of living aspect as well, like quality of life. So doing what we did also actually created or enabled me to continue a quality of life that I wanted to continue. I didn't want to give myself to a corporate. I wanted to spend more time, or as much time as possible, with family while I was working, and doing what I did that as well as giving me the opportunity to be financially safe, or at least cut the risks as far as I could into a fledgling career. It also meant that, you know, I was at home with my family, which, let's face it, is the most important thing.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. Marv says he's going back to work. Lunchtime's over. He'll see you later on the replay. Be safe and keep rocking. Everybody says, take care, Marv. Meredith says, take care, Marv. Marv tells Meredith, take care. John Celestri's in the house. Corporates just want to recycle their IPs, not develop any new material.
Yeah.
That's so true anymore. Very rarely do you see a fresh IP come out of one of these corporate structures, mainly because they're so worried about their Netflix and movie deals. Meredith says, I'm excited about creating my first comic book, but it's lower on the priority list because it doesn't pay the bills. It takes resources, and I've got no expectations of success. It is a labor of love.
Yeah, just don't put it too low on the ladder that you actually forget about it.
It won't get done.
It won't get done.
No.
I'm having that problem now with my crowdfunding book. Every time I get around to working on it, I get a couple commercial jobs, and it seems to get farther and farther away. Which is disgusting.
I realized the other day
list.
when I realized, like, I haven't been working on my own thing in a while, and it hit me. If I took 1 day a week and just worked on my own stuff, that's 52 days a year. I mean, and my book's black and white. I could be knocking out 2 pages a day at that rate. That's several issues. But then, like, Sunday comes along and I get home from church and I'm tired and a nap sounds really good. And that second book just doesn't rate as high as the nap that day. And then it's killing me because it's been like 80 days since I made that 80 days since I realized, man, I could have got so much stuff done on those Sundays if I would have just done it.
I can only relate.
It's tough.
Joe McPhee says, makes you wonder why ongoing or serialized comics are being frowned upon for shorter stories or limited issue arcs. It's as if world or universe building is an afterthought and not the standard. That's very true. Joe, there's a lot to be said for short stories and done in ones. So, and definitely with the larger companies, you don't see that very often anymore. Subway says that is wholesome, Mr. Fish. This is a great creation, Mr. Lee. Kudos.
Thank you.
Comic book black belt. That's you.
Yeah.
Lively work, Mr. Fish. Meredith again says, I love it, Mr. Fishley. Thanks for writing and creating something for a really underserved community. That's awesome. Kino says
very much.
Kino says he likes your attitude, Mr. Fish. Comic Newswire left Tourette's Life in the chat. We have Mr. Fish's information. That looks to be all of the new comments, most of them.
It's
Thomas,
funny, my son was saying the other day, he's like, all my friends just think it's Mr. Fish's neighborhood over here all the time, and you're just this sweet old man. And like, he knows the stories from when I was in high school and the type of guy that I used to be back then. And I'm like, you know what? That's not a bad reputation to have. If everybody in the community thinks that I'm this sweet, loving old guy, I'll take it. That's a whole lot better than the reputation I had in high school. I'm glad to have that reputation.
Thomas Ryan says, Randy, Rob, what's up? What's up, Thomas? Good to see you on board. More info for the Kickstarter project for all winners. And Sarah says, love the diversity in the panel. Thanks, Sarah. Sarah, you're always welcome here. And nice to see you. Okay, Daphne.
Yes.
Thanks for being patient.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. I mean, our guests talk first.
There we go.
So.
Yeah, like I keep saying, you're more like family now. So we have you on pretty often. So we're always happy to have you.
Thank you.
Tell us about Tall Tales.
Well, okay, so Tall Tales is a multiple issue fantasy adventure for ages 13 and up. I just spent the last 2 days making a video primer of this, so I got it a little bit fresh in the mind, but also the tedium of editing kind of erased it at the same time too. So I might forget parts of my own book. So this comic features funny animal characters in the style of Lord of the Rings meets Disney's Robin Hood, a nice little mishmash there. Excuse me for the noise in the back. And the book is written by J.D. Calderon and is illustrated completely by me. So like I said, it's a 20-issue Tall Tales Thieves Quest, which is the first story arc that pretty much establishes the world, is 20 issues that you can read for free online, or it's still available as a trade paperback that I'm discontinuing. I have like only 10 copies left. So if you want to check out those 20 issues, in a nice thick volume, you can head over to talltalesonline.com and pick up a trade there.
Yeah, that's not a paperback. That's more like an omnibus.
Yeah, it's a little on the thick side. Yeah, it's 560 pages. Yeah. So so the basic premise of the book is that we have our main group of friends and warriors who are sent on a quest by their benefactor, the wizard owl Hullux, to find and bring back the fabled Great Seal of Iberion, which is a powerful magical item stolen from him by unknown thieves, hence the name of the first story arc. I'm currently working on the second story arc called Tears of the Mother, which is a direct continuation of that 20 issues. And although unlike the first arc, which you can read on the website for free, this one is a Patreon and Kickstarter exclusive. So you can head on over again to my website, hit the Patreon link, and the details are there as to how you can view how you can view the current storyline as I'm working on it. So right now I just finished posting up all the layouts. I posted up some 2 covers for the next couple of issues, because this particular storyline, Tears of the Mother, is an 8-issue story arc. And we should be having the Kickstarter to issue 6 in early 2021, maybe around February, March.
Okay, and that's talltalesonline.com. The Tales is spelled Tails.
Yes.
And then we have
well, yeah, that's the opposite. That's my other project. That's the opposite direction of Tall Tales, where Tall Tales is kind of like I'm kind of hesitant to say that it's all ages, because it does feature like a little bit more complicated medieval style politics. Like, I don't think a 10-year-old would really be into it, but and it's like more like kind of all ages. Like I said, if you can watch Lord of the Rings, then Tall Tales is your thing. House of Bob is my current Kickstarter, and it's an adults only sketchbook. And pretty much this is a side project that I put out to help support the work on my other comics. So I have the sketchbooks that support the comics. So House of Bob is currently on Kickstarter right now. It's a 24-page sketchbook of adult furry artwork, pinups mostly. And we're close to our first stretch goal, which will get everybody who pledges for the sketchbook a PDF of a sketchbook I put out back in 1996. And this is pretty much the only way you can get this PDF. So I'm like $50-something away from cracking that stretch goal. So
So-
all the links is in talltalesonline.com. So
Okay.
Mhm.
And also the first 20 issues of Tall Tales
yes,
are
Mhm.
available online at that site as
yes.
well.
Because I know 20 issues is kind of a commitment, but at least this way you can read it for free. You can see if you like it, and then it's like you can continue supporting it on the later issues.
But really, just read a few pages and then
Mhm.
buy the big book.
Uh-huh.
That way you have
Yeah,
something to
yeah.
hold and put on your bookshelf.
Oh, hold on. Let me show. This is this what I'm showing is a hardcover that we tried out, but the actual book itself is a paperback.
Now you're just
So-
going to tease everybody.
Yeah, I know, right?
You're going to
Yeah.
have to run a campaign where you're offering the hardback.
Right. So
Look at how
Oh,
thick
this
that
is-
is.
Look at
this
that.
is- yeah.
Hardcover.
Yeah,
That's,
no, really.
serious.
I had to try it at least once to see what it would look like in hardcover, but it was a little out of our league to get like a full print run done. So that's
Yeah.
why we did this. So this is in paperback on the website. So this, I think we only made 2 of these.
So now
The
you know how
hardcover.
thick that paperback's going to
Yeah.
look.
Yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
yeah, it is a phone book. It's a phone
Yeah.
book.
Uh-huh.
Well, like you were saying in a previous conversation, you blinked and all of a sudden 1,000 pages. had
Yeah,
gone
pretty much. Yeah. And I still don't think I did it's enough work.
by. Mr. Fish's expression there was like, "Whoa,
Wow.
1,000 pages."
Yeah.
I mean, I knock out a lot of pages, but that's a lot of pages.
yeah. It's it's been a while. It's like, not for nothing. It's like it's 1,000 pages over like a 20-year time span. So, I'm not like I know a lot of the old school artists were able to knock this out in like 1,000 pages in a year or something, but that's not how we work on this side of the farm.
I don't think very many people can kick out that. I think Dave Sims took him a good 10 years to kick out 1,000 pages. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So this is my store where you can pick up the trade and some of the individual issues.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And again, talltalesonline.com. Don't go to talltales.com. It's a completely different site.
Right. Yeah. No, what's funny is that the original talltales.com used to be run by a corset maker. So it's like, okay. Only tangentially related.
All right. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Yeah.
We are caught up on the comments, folks. Any questions out there for our guests? Feel free to jump into the chat. Feel free to like us on the YouTube or Facebook as far as that goes. Let us know what you think. If you have any questions for our guests, you're more than welcome to chime in this morning. We want to thank everybody for coming. Everybody out there in Indie Volt Radio, we appreciate you listening all over the world. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. This is, again, the Breakfast Buzz for Thursday, September 17th, 2020. So thanks for coming on and listening.
I would like to ask, because this is an important question, everyone who's with us today, how do we get children excited about comics again?
Oh, but
What do you guys think?
by actually creating direct material for
Very
them.
good question.
They've got to be exposed to comics, and that's
Yeah.
a big problem. That's one of the things that bugged me the most when they took comics out of grocery stores and things like that, is kids aren't exposed to them anymore. Like if I was good at the doctor and didn't kick him, then I knew I was going to get a comic book when we went to the store to get my prescriptions filled. But there's no way now mom's going to make a separate trip across town to a dark comic book store, wait in line for an hour while 2 guys at the desk argue about who'd win in a fight between the Thing and the Hulk, to pay $6 for an adults only comic book. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
If
I mean,
they were in the store and cheap,
Absolutely.
supposed to.
You absolutely nailed it.
Yeah.
Nailed it. If books aren't in front of kids, how do they know they're even there?
Right.
Most of my kids' friends don't even think comic books are still a thing. Like they love the movies, but they're like, man, I wish they still made comic books. And I'm like, dude, they do. I do. Yeah. That's my job, man. Check
10 years of Marvel Universe, and there was never a spinner rack in a cinema. What's that about? Why didn't that happen? I think, if anything, that proves that comics aren't important to those large companies.
And again, not only that, but the Marvel comics very rarely even bothered to tie in to the movies. In fact, they were interested in going one or two generations beyond. Yeah, that's very true.
And then not only that, they're usually not age appropriate either.
No, exactly. Right.
And I mean, it's like they're comics made for, like, I don't know, 30-year-olds and up practically, and then it's like, and then they're wondering, oh, why aren't kids interested in comics? I mean, honestly, my first exposure to American comics was in the supermarket.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for that, if I had to get into comics now, I don't think I would have ever, because it's like it was that casual finding of it at my level at the time, like, I don't know, like 11 or 12.
Yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It was Rocket Raccoon, by the way. Between finding Rocket Raccoon in a supermarket and ElfQuest at a Barnes and Noble, that was my gateway into American comics.
Absolutely.
Because in every other place that I've spent time in, they always had kid comics available at the newsstand. Mm-hmm. So it was, so it's like I was always exposed to comics, but not in the way Americans do them until I found those two comics. So, but yeah, if it wasn't that accessible, I don't know if I would have ever gotten into it at all.
Well, even my kids that are like 16 to 20 now, once they could read, I started getting them comic book subscriptions like for Christmas. But it was so hard to find anything that was suitable for them, that wasn't like super graphic violence or foul language. And it was like either really dumbed down kiddie stuff, based on like the little children's toys with the fat hands and feet, or, it was really hard to find anything. And just because you don't make it adults only doesn't mean it has to be a bad story, or it has to be poorly written, or it can't be interesting and have drama and romance and danger. Like, you don't have to have boobs out for a woman to be sexy. And all but one of the books I've worked on in the last couple of years have all been family friendly. And I mean, there's beautiful women in evening dresses that look very sexy, but they're not running around in battle lingerie and stainless steel thigh-high stockings. Like, I mean, it doesn't have to be something that the kids can't see to be interesting and exciting, and
that's why I was trying to coin that phrase, romance not sex, action not violence, a hero's journey not ideology. Make those comics fun.
I mean, the dumbed down part is really the important part, because it's like way too many people think that kids are stupid. And they're, and it's like, look, don't you remember what you were into as a kid? I mean, I was reading Narnia, I was a precocious reader, and it's like, I don't understand, like, why they think that everything has to be like Maisie is for babies, but somehow a lot of people think that Maisie is for 12-year-olds. And it's like, no, you're kind of missing a big gap here.
I'd never have read Lord of the Rings if I hadn't read Thor.
Right.
It's like this. All ages is about speaking to all ages and not speaking down to kids. Yeah, and a lot of the time, corporate publishers are labeling things. This is a kid's book. This is a teens or YA book. This is an adult book. No. Make it so that everybody can enjoy the same stories together.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Together.
Yep.
That was the awesome thing about Stan Lee. Like, he wasn't afraid to put big words in there, and he's like, "What's the worst that's going to happen? A kid picks up a dictionary and looks the word up."
Right. Really.
There you go.
Dictionaries.
Yep.
Yeah.
Literally,
a lot of times he did that just for that reason.
and I learned to read. I have a bigger vocabulary thanks to Stan Lee's progressive nature towards talking to children.
Absolutely.
Superb. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, everybody here on the panel is doing all ages work, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, it's like, yeah, yeah.
I mean, some of us do a more adult books.
Well, but that's
also,
but the thing is, that's completely separate.
We're all doing, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like, but like Tall Tales specifically, I would like to think it's all ages.
Sure.
It's just that, you know, there's certain things in there that it's not that I don't think that parents wouldn't want their kids to see it, but it's just like, well, would kids understand this? But we just take the chance anyway.
Would you say you're on the level of a YA novel, young adult novel?
Something, yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I would think so too.
Yeah.
But you know your work a lot better than I do.
Yeah, but you know what it is? It's like we work on it. I mean, especially, I've been working on my work for so long that I don't see it the way someone who's never seen it before.
Sure.
Like what's funny is like, especially with this video that I've just been editing, it's really trying to like learning how to explain this to somebody who has no idea what it is. Like I was actually kind of a hard
thinking about this story for 20 years, like you have.
Right, exactly. It's like, and it was like one of like the hardest projects I had to do because it's like, wow, I never really had to think about my stuff. I just did it and put it out. But I guess without conventions to really like hone that pitching style and see what people react to, and I just had to figure out a way. It's like, okay, how do I talk to people about my comic and have them understand what I'm talking about? And it's like, I'm still trying to refine it, but
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And you don't have a huge marketing team and a big advertising budget.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we're all the hats here. You know.
Part of the fun of working in this market. Go ahead.
When I was writing T-Man, I had some friends that knew absolutely nothing about comics that I kept running my script by and running the book by as I was working on it, because I knew, particularly with my book aimed at kids with Tourette's, I was going to have a whole lot of first-time readers, and I wanted to make sure that it made sense to people that didn't read comic books, because there's a lot of shortcuts and things that we're used to using. And we're used to like, okay, we know this happened because this happened. And, we know that the scene changed, or we know that they're thinking this because of the thought balloon. Yeah. But not everybody gets that. So I wanted to make sure that it all made sense across the board. And actually, some of the best notes I got were from a friend of mine who had never read a comic book before. And, he's like, okay, I don't understand this part. And I had to, even though it made sense to me and made sense to my kids that grew up on comics, I have to understand that if he doesn't get it, there's going to be 100 other people that don't get it. And so I rewrote it and changed it, and it came out much better in the end because of that.
Yeah. Meredith says, let children or get children excited about comics. Turn off all electronics. Don't give them a choice. LOL. She says, I flipped the switch on the electric panel a few times when my boys needed board games and family time.
And remember, iPads can be locked into place so they can actually only access what you want them to. So if they're reading on a tablet, that's fine. There are programs that will stop them from going further. The next comment from Grand Rapids Comic Con, the person behind that, Randy, right?
Mark Hodges, yes.
Mark, can you be on our show? We want to do a show for Indie Vote Live on I want to say the 29th. Let me get the date for the 29th at 9 p.m. We're trying to invite people who do Comic Cons. We're going to deliberately try to talk about that as a topic that night, because Randy, we're going to industry talk that night a lot more. We're going to be focusing on some different themes on Indie Vote Live, and I want to do Comic Cons that night. So if you're available, we'd love to hear you talk about it, because of course Randy's going to be one of our guests. He's not only going to be a co-host but a guest that night, because he puts on shows up in Michigan. Yeah. Up in Michigan.
Yeah, in Michigan. Sure.
Well, I don't know Michigan that well. I don't know if
for Russ it would be over in Michigan.
Oh, okay. Over in Michigan. Across the pond, right? Across the pond.
Same thing for Corvax.
Yeah.
Kovacs, right? Are you there? You still with us? Milan?
Frozen.
Looks like he froze.
It looks like you froze, Milan. Sorry. I thought there was a reason why we weren't.
He's back.
He's back. He's back.
Is he back? Okay.
We
Hey,
have it back.
how are you?
You got worried there for a second.
Yeah.
Fine. It's just I think there's something wrong with the internet connection here.
Yeah, it's a crazy software. We get it every once in a while. So you're not alone.
Yeah.
So Mark is working on an all ages comic that he can give away at the show. So that's why we're looking at making a free all ages comic we can give away at our show every year, starting in 2021. We have a cute mascot who will tie her in as well to all kids 12 and under.
Yeah.
You're seeing that here in the States a little bit more. It's slow, but it's slowly starting to get out, especially the Walmarts and Targets are starting to carry more comics and more graphic novels. Barnes and Noble has dedicated an entire section now to manga and graphic novels.
And if you need, Mark, if you need a writer who will write something for free just for kids, I'm happy to do it.
The dollar stores out there are starting to carry dollar comics of some Disney reprints and that. So you're starting to see it slowly get out there, but there's always a need for a lot more. So.
There was a blog post that I was reading that was kind of like putting forward the idea that because kids are now spending an inordinate amount of time on the computer because of having to not being able to go to school or go anywhere, that a lot of that. Well, they were claiming that they were seeing that a lot of kids were actually like, when given the choice now, like once they were done with the computer, they went outside and did something else. Like they're seeing an actual like kind of a rebellion to the screen now. You know, well, so it's like, yeah, so this would be the time to like, oh, here, have a comic.
Yeah.
Read this instead.
Yep. The ideal time. Well, especially not with the way that the school system works, because they make learning a chore.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here having to look at the screen all day. I just want to go out and do something or read something else. The wife is the same way. She works at a lab and she's been doing computer work, for 8 to 10 hours.
Yeah.
She's sick of the computer. So she usually reads a book.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Or does anything but have to stare at a screen. So yeah, that's very understandable. Meredith says we couldn't afford comics when I was a kid. We passed the Sunday paper around. Yeah, we did that here too. Loved Garfield, Little Lulu, and Beetle Bailey. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was that was the real entry point. The Sunday comics. Yeah.
Our neighborhood just got a group of neighbors around, and all of the kids decided that they all kept their own collections, but they all had their own specialty. One kid read Spider-Man. I read Captain America and a couple other books. Another kid, was into Avengers, and we would get together and just swap in the backyard.
Right. Yeah.
Read everybody else's comic. Yeah. Mark again says also we can expose more local artists and writers as well, and help get paid projects under their belt as well. Go ahead.
Social media has made that so much easier now, man. I wish I had Facebook 20 years ago, and I'd be a lot further along than I am now.
Yeah.
But that's the nice thing is you can collaborate with people all over the world. And, I've worked on projects with people from the Philippines and Mexico and Ireland and Australia, and it's just a digital file transfer away. And that makes it so much easier. If my son hadn't broke the screen on the laptop so he can't draw on it right now, I could have him paying gigs all day long right now because he's good and he's talented, and there's people out there that need the work. And it's so easy now.
Yeah, before too long, Mr. Fish, you're going to have your own art studio working.
I did have him color one book for me. He's a little slow, but he was also 15 at the time.
Hey, got to start somewhere.
But, hey, he's got one gig under his belt anyway, and he did a good job.
It's like, you want that video game? You've got 5 more pages to color.
He doesn't have my work ethic because, like, for a lot of the last year, some days I was putting in like 16 hours a day, 6 days a week. But, after the divorce, when I'm suddenly the only one paying the bills on comic book money, I'm working a whole lot harder than I used to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but again, being a parent, you're showing by example. So you never know what they're picking up.
Oh, yeah.
They're always watching.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? That's another thing too, because it's like if because it's like kids mimic what their parents are doing, and if the parents have no interest in comics,
Yeah. Or
then
reading.
the kids are not right, or reading,
Yeah.
In general. Yeah, it's like the kids aren't going to pick that up either. So that's also another hurdle to get over, because it's like, at conventions, it's almost cliche to see the parents where the kid wants to buy a comic and the parents are like, nah, you're not getting that.
Yeah.
It's like, meanwhile, they're, dad got all his Funko Pops, but, the kid can't get a comic,
Yeah.
If dad had just spent $300, the kid could get a $5 comic book.
Yeah, exactly.
Big believer in accessible comics. There has to be a ramp in avenue there, whether it's at the grocery store counter. That's one of the things I think that's kept Archie alive for as long as they have, is because they've had those digests sitting there at the grocery counter. There needs to be a whole lot more of that.
Yeah.
Out there.
That's the thing I like about Alterna's printing partnership program is, you can get them printed on newsprint and get them so cheap. You could just almost give them away, but the size is a little bit different. The lettering has to be on a separate layer. Like, it is a little more complicated than just sending a file to Kablam or one of the other printers, but the newsprint makes it so cheap.
Well, I got a client that I do comics for that they give away for the Nature Preserve, made out of newsprint, incredibly inexpensive. But you have to buy 3,000 to 5,000 in order to make it worth their while to run it on a large web press on newsprint.
Alterna's prices are great as well. Their pocket money prices, $1.50. That's
they're $1.99 now.
Yeah, well, if Marvel and DC were really interested in getting back the kids market, they would do that. They would go back to newsprint, and they would stick all those comics back into.
Exactly. And you can reprint old comics without having to buy new stuff.
Exactly.
True. Dead on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hey, Randy,
yes, Rob.
Maybe we should take a commercial break and then come back and start saying goodbye about that time.
Yes, sir. Do we have that?
Guys, I thought we did have it up in the room, didn't we?
I thought Varian was supposed to plug that in. I don't know if he did or not.
Let me see.
We would like to thank one of our sponsors, Geekadome, though.
Oh, that's a good commercial, yeah.
So we're going to run a quick commercial and be right back on the other side.
Come on to the Geekadrome. It's the place where all geeks will feel at home. Yeah, RPGs, card games, and nerd culture. Comic books, geek lights, and dope posters. And if you're up late at night, then watch out, you might get the bite of a zombie, right? Roll dice for the best D&T merchandise. It's the place to find something you searched all your life. Say, get into the Geekadrome. 534 Brookline Boulevard, come on. Say, get into the Geekadrome. It's the place where all geeks will feel at home.
We want to thank Paul out in Pennsylvania for his sponsorship on that. And we've had Paul on in the past and have talked to him a few times. Welcome back, Mr. Kovacs.
Hey, sorry, my girlfriend just arrived home and I actually have to go now.
Time for dinner.
No problem. You can't leave. You can't leave.
So, yeah.
You can't leave yet until you tell everybody one more time about your product and where they can find it.
Okay, so it's all-star graphic novel. It's 52 pages now, and it's at www.allstarcomic.com. And there's a web shop there, and now that you and Rob suggested, there might be an in-demand Indiegogo campaign as well.
There we go. That'll be great. We'll keep an eye on that.
Thank you very much, guys, for having me on this show. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks so much for being here. We appreciate your time, your patience, and your product. Absolutely.
Loved your work. Loved your work. Yeah.
Thank you. I love all of your work, and I already followed you and got on your newsletter, Daphne. So
cool. Thank you.
I'm gonna just switch off, and then I'm gonna follow you on social medias.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Take care. Have a good rest of your day.
All
right?
Bye.
Thank you. You too.
All right.
Bye.
We'll see you. Take care.
Bye.
That was Milan Kovacs for allstarcomic.com.
and then there were 5.
Huh.
And if you haven't been over to his site yet, you absolutely need to stop by and take a look at Bube.
Oh, man.
He is very cute. Very cute. Mark said that he can find you a couple of more guests if you need them. Rob, I can put you in connection with Mark on that if you're having a hard time finding more organizers.
Yeah, we want a diverse group, so this is a grouping call. Anyone who wants to come in, weigh in. We know you guys have been suffering. We want to dedicate one show to actually remind people that we're coming back. Conventions are going to come back, and we're going to talk about what that future looks like, because I think everyone's been talking about it right now. We're seeing everything closing down. I mean, it's still now, the shows that were pushed are now getting pushed back to 2021 or just finally canceled, and they're admitting we're just going to look at 2021 now and not have this year affect next year.
Well, Mark still has the Grand Rapids Con that he has not canceled yet, and he won't cancel until he absolutely has to. So in the meantime, it's full steam ahead. Mark also says our freebies will be on newsprint. Plan on doing an Indiegogo for an expanded version of our book that will have more of a traditional graphic novel. To give you a price for newsprint, our program is 56 pages, comic-sized newsprint with a little thicker cover for 31 cents each delivered. The quantity is 10,000. So that's how inexpensive.
Yeah.
But again, you have to buy in bulk.
Someplace to store 10,000 comics.
Well, yeah. I remember when we had to store 3,000 of multiple issues, and it's like, you could build rooms with the boxes. Yeah.
I've lived in rooms with those kind of boxes.
Exactly. And all of a sudden your coffee table is made out of boxes. Chairs are now boxes.
On one of those boxes right now.
Yeah.
Couches out of boxes. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Great insulation though for the wintertime, especially up here in cold Michigan. So, yeah. And again, we want to thank everybody for being with us. Everybody on the radio out there, we appreciate you all. And Mr. Fish Lee, why don't you again paraphrase your product and tell folks where they can get a hold of you.
Mr. Fish Lee, and my comic is T-Man and Hyperstrike, the towering teal titan of Tourette syndrome and the hyperactive hero. You can find stuff about me at MrFishComics.com. The best place is to follow me on Facebook at Tourette's Life. Everything else is either Mr. Fish Lee or Tourette's Life. Twitter, Instagram, DeviantArt, all that stuff. I've got a shop on my Tourette's Life page on Facebook where you can find my comics and posters and T-shirts. And if you're outside of the U.S., just send me a message and we'll get you shipping figured out. And I've mailed comics all over the world now.
Sweet. And again, that Mr. Fish Comics.
Yep, MrFishComics.com.
.com. It's Fish, F-I-S-H. Just like
everybody always asks me, they're like, how do you spell that? I'm like, I spell it the same way you do, F-I-S-H. And then invariably, they're like, well, how do you pronounce that? I'm like,
is it Fichet?
Just literally told you my name.
It's Fish.
It never
Mr. Fish.
Somebody's like, frog, right? I'm like, that's close. It's real close.
It's like you've heard of Stanley. I'm Fish Lee. Come on.
It doesn't seem weird to me, but to everybody else, it seems like a weird name. It's short for Fisher, but my mom didn't even call me Fisher. And
no, it's like I get the same problem too. People think that the shorter the name, the more complicated it must be.
Mm-hmm.
So they just automatically assume that, it's like, oh, it can't possibly be that easy.
Punctuated by the bird in the background, absolutely. and sadly, Barney Miller isn't reran enough on the Nostalgia channel.
Oh yeah,
for
really?
people to take Fish as a regular name. Yeah,
exactly.
Tell me about it. Yeah.
Ross, again, tell us about Only Death Can Save Us and how they can get a hold of us.
Okay. You can find me on YouTube as Comic Book Black Belt. You can find my websites at russleach.com or comicbookblackbelt.com. You can find out more about the book Only Death Can Save Us at onlydeathcansavus.com. There is a link there to the Indiegogo campaign that's doing very well. Thank you very much to all those backers, and you can go back it there or share it if you can't. You can also find me on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Parley, although they're still not uploading images properly, but I keep trying.
On Parley?
Yeah.
Some of these platforms, a little bit.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
But yeah, you can find pretty much everywhere I am by going to russleach.com.
And that's Leach, not Leash.
Yeah,
That's
Leach, not
There we go.
leash. Yeah, I'm not.
And Russ, in just a few minutes, when we start the news for today on this network, you are going to be our featured campaign for the day. We talk about it and playing the video live on the Comics News Wire, CNW.
And Daphne, once more, how can folks get a hold of you?
If Funny Animal Fantasy is your thing, go to talltalesonline.com. That's Tails, Tails, online.com. Okay. talltalesonline.com and sign up to get the first 3 issues of Tall Tales for free. You'll get the PDFs of the first 3 issues. And if you're also into art tutorials, demos, and the occasional live stream, you can find me on YouTube at Daphne Lage Art, where I do a better job of editing out these guys.
And Lage is Lage.
L-A-G-E, yes. L-A-G-E, yes.
L-A-G-E. Talltalesonline.com. Tails is T-A-I-L-S. T-A-I-L-S. And again, like we said before, you never know when your kids are watching. So Daphne's birds are getting trained to really emphasize.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Rob, how can they find you? How can they get a hold of you?
Well, you can find me on Indiegogo right now, still promoting a kids-friendly title, Cat Dad and Supermom, where we teach morals with farts. And no, I'm not kidding. I actually do that. You can also find me in just a few minutes as I go live with, as we talked about, the Comics News Wire. This Saturday, we're going to do something tomorrow night. We haven't figured out what, because we've been doing Friday night pilots here on Indie Vault, so stay tuned on that. But this Saturday, the Devil's Advocate returns as we fall into line with industry standards. This week's title is, oh my God, Becky, Keanu Reeves is on Kickstarter. Is the celebrity invasion of crowdfunding a good thing or a bad thing? That was what we'll be exploring this Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern time. I don't know if it's standard or whatever time it is, but it's Eastern time. Eastern time. This Saturday on Indie Vault program. Remember, if you guys are listening in the radio and you haven't seen the art today, you're doing yourself a disservice. Subscribe today to the Indie Vault YouTube channel.
Absolutely. And you can hear us on the Indie Vault radio channel at Indie Vault, www.indievault.com. That's VOLT.com. You can listen now. You can pick up the app on the Google Play on the streamer. And if you ask Alexa, nice enough, if she would play indievault.com, she just might do that for you. We also have an Indie Vault Roku channel where we play all sorts of movies and wrestling programs, and we stream some of our podcast virally on there as well. We also have the YouTube channel under Indie Vault. Please go there, subscribe, and like. And we are always interested in your opinion and comment on our shows. Please contact us on the email at indievaultlive@indievault.com. Make sure you include Indie Vault Live or Breakfast Buzz in the subject matter if you want us to address it in the morning program. And please keep those emails to 90 words or less so that we can type them on a card and address them here on the show, which we will always try to get everybody's comments in. And remember, no comment is too serious. No comment is too stupid or shallow, because of course our feedback will be better because of your setback. Hashtag get an education. Hashtag Indie Vault. And we are going to be back next Thursday morning for the Breakfast Buzz at 9 a.m., where we will be talking more comics and fun things. We also have the Tuesday night broadcast at 9 p.m. That is very industry and educational oriented. The Indie Princess brings you Geekgasm every Wednesday, hopefully with a perspective, a female perspective, a more female perspective on comics and genre media. I believe Meredith will be filling in here very quickly for a few shows. And speaking of filling in for a few shows, Meredith is going to be filling in for my show, Sunday Funnies at 9 a.m., where we talk about the more lighthearted and whimsical, fun side of comics, including Russ's comic, even though it was about death. We just had him on last Sunday. So it was a good talk. So we hope everybody will tune in then. Of course, all of these programs are archived over at the Indie Vault YouTube channel. We
And
deeply
fun,
go ahead.
Done right. Death can be fun if done right.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
always. Yeah. And then, of course, Rob's program on Saturday night that he's already told you about. And that's the Indie Vault Network right now. Rob has a news program coming up next.
And we have Geek Insider programming on
I'm sorry. Geek Insider programming on Mondays and
Thursdays at 9.
Monday and Thursdays at 9, including Freaky, Geeky, and Freaky, Cheeky, and Downright Geeky.
Yes, close enough.
Close enough.
At 9 p.m.
Which is like
just in a different way, but
which is like an X-Files program for comic lovers.
Sunday nights at 9 p.m. right here on the Indie Network.
It is awesome, man. Meredith and Matthew do that program as well. Again, we want to thank everybody. Thanks, Russ. Thanks, Mr. Fish. Thanks,
problem.
Daphne, for
Thank
being
you
on
all.
board.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me on.
Anytime. Don't forget these campaigns, like we said, and Mr. Fish's site, Mr. Fish Comics. Definitely go over there and take a look at the art if you haven't seen it yet. It's well worth your time. Everybody that was here was real professional quality work. You'd be amazed at the quality and the variety out there in the alternative market. Yes,
low, affordable price.
Yes, Mr. Fish. Some of them are bad and contrived off of other properties, but they're getting better. And it's
there's some really good stuff out there. You just
some
gotta find the gems in the sea of mess.
just like every art form. You have to wade through the crap in order to find the gold. So we appreciate you all. Thanks again for listening. We will be back next Thursday morning at 9 a.m. for more Breakfast Buzz. And until then, everybody, take care. Stay healthy. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Ciao.
Take care. We're going out in the usual style. So see you soon.